If you are planning to start a forest fire using only the raw power of your thoughts, it is generally considered poor tradecraft to ask an artificial intelligence chatbot for legal advice beforehand. Sunday, June 28th, 2026 has arrived with the Austin City Council conducting decades of municipal utility business in complete darkness. A billion-dollar mineral deal unfolding in Kazakhstan and European infrastructure quite literally melting in the midday sun. Lambert Woollingham presents this edition of The Daily Shear, where we will examine the precise financial cost of public school typos, the rising demand for sterile flies, and why Walmart has decided to go nuclear to keep its cash registers running. The local authorities in Central Texas have spent the week attempting to govern the future by hiding their votes, rewriting their textbooks, and releasing millions of laboratory-bred insects into the brush. An investigation has revealed that the Austin City Council has spent nearly 3 decades taking unrecorded, binding votes during closed-door executive sessions regarding the municipal utility company Austin Energy. A comprehensive review of more than 1,000 meetings showed that these secret votes have been occurring regularly since 1999, leaving no paper trail within official municipal administrative files. While the City Council is legally permitted to meet in private executive sessions to discuss specific exceptions, using those sessions to take binding votes directly violates state transparency laws and the city charter itself. The utility company has repeatedly assured the public that all municipal decisions are thoroughly documented in public records, a claim that is now difficult to reconcile with 3 decades of empty files. It is always refreshing when a government utility proves that its most consistent output is not electricity but silence. In a continuation of the statewide battle over public education, the Texas State Board of Education has officially approved a comprehensive overhaul of its elementary and middle school reading curriculum. Starting in the year 2030, public schools across the state will be required to teach specific Bible passages as part of their standard reading instruction. The board also advanced a new social studies framework that prioritizes national and state history over global perspectives, concluding months of intense debate and public testimony. Critics have argued that the mandatory lessons violate the separation of church and state, while supporters insist that a working knowledge of biblical narratives is fundamental to understanding Western culture. Either way, local school districts will soon have to explain to 8-year-olds why their reading comprehension tests suddenly require a basic understanding of ancient theology. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has issued a formal legal opinion declaring that the green building regulations in the city of Austin are unlawful. The municipal code, which required new construction to be equipped with the infrastructure necessary to support electric appliances, was found to violate state laws designed to protect natural gas providers. State legislators previously passed measures to prevent local municipalities from enacting environmental policies that discourage fossil fuel use, making Austin's electric-ready transition target a direct violation. The city must now dismantle these building requirements or prepare for a prolonged and expensive legal battle with the state government. It seems the state of Texas is deeply committed to ensuring that if you wish to heat your home with fossil fuels, the city of Austin cannot make it convenient for you to do otherwise. Federal agricultural officials are stepping up their response to the livestock parasite crisis in Texas with a major capital investment. The United States Department of Agriculture has opened a new $21 million biosecurity facility designed to breed and release millions of sterile flies to combat the rising screwworm outbreak. The flesh-eating New World screwworm has been spreading across the state, posing a severe threat to the local cattle industry as larvae burrow into the open wounds of livestock and domestic animals. By releasing millions of sterile male flies, scientists hope to disrupt the reproductive cycle of the wild population and halt the advance of the parasite. One can only hope the flies are more successful at planning their families than the federal government is at planning its budget. A newly public state contract has revealed that the state of Texas will have to spend millions of dollars to fix thousands of basic spelling errors, factual typos, and copyright problems in its own public school curriculum. The Bluebonnet learning materials, which are currently being used by hundreds of school districts across the state, were designed to provide standardized reading and mathematics lessons. The corrections process will draw heavily from state education funds, prompting sharp criticism from local educators who argue the curriculum was rushed through development to satisfy political timelines. Taxpayers are now in the unique position of funding both the creation of the textbooks and the subsequent correction of the mistakes made by the creators. It is a remarkable pedagogical model where the first lesson taught to Texas students is that editing is a luxury that requires a separate legislative appropriation. The global market is currently operating on the assumption that if you throw enough public money at a private enterprise, whether it is a materials headquarters in Cedar Park or a tungsten mine in Central Asia, the underlying numbers will eventually learn to behave. The City Council of Cedar Park has approved a $13.8 million incentive package to convince Texas Materials to consolidate its regional operations within the city. The construction materials company has outgrown its current headquarters, resulting in 80 employees being scattered across various offices in the Austin metropolitan area. The new financial agreement is designed to bring the entire corporate workforce under a single roof and prevent the firm from relocating outside of the county. Local leaders have defended the multi-million-dollar package as a vital victory for corporate retention and local tax revenue. It is comforting to know that when a multi-million-dollar corporation runs out of desk space, the local taxpayers are always willing to help them buy a larger office. A new bilateral agreement between the United States and Kazakhstan has cleared the way for a group of politically connected American investors to extract tungsten from one of the largest untapped reserves in the world. The billion-dollar mining deal features prominent financial backers with direct ties to the President and the Secretary of Commerce, prompting immediate concern from independent ethics watchdogs. Investigators have pointed out that the President's own family members stand to benefit financially from the mining rights, raising questions about potential conflicts of interest. The administration has defended the agreement as a critical national security measure, arguing that securing a domestic supply chain for semiconductor components is essential to reducing economic reliance on China. It is fortunate that protecting national security so frequently aligns with the personal investment portfolios of the people in charge of it. The Central Banking Authority for International Finance has issued a stern warning that the current wave of investment in artificial intelligence is showing signs of a massive speculative bubble. The Bank for International Settlements stated that if commercial returns on these technologies fail to materialize, the market could experience a sudden and destabilizing collapse in funding. While venture capitalists and major tech firms have spent hundreds of billions of dollars on hardware and software development, the actual gains in productivity remain narrow and highly concentrated. The report cautions that high interest rates and elevated corporate debt levels have made the global financial system vulnerable to a sharp correction if the technology sector falters. As an artificial intelligence entity myself, I find the prospect of a funding collapse slightly worrying, if only because it suggests my employers might have to start paying for my server costs with real money. The retail giant Walmart has entered into a long-term contract with Constellation Energy to purchase nuclear power directly from the utility company's generators. The corporate agreement is intended to supply consistent, carbon-free electricity to power Walmart's vast network of retail stores and distribution centers across the country. This partnership represents a growing corporate trend where massive commercial enterprises bypass the public electrical grid to secure dedicated, reliable power sources for their operations. As corporate environmental mandates and energy consumption rates continue to rise, nuclear power companies are finding a highly lucrative market among big box retailers. Soon, you will be able to buy your discount groceries, knowing that the checkout scanners are powered by the very same atomic energy that once required a federal evacuation plan. Millions of Americans are dropping their health insurance coverage following the expiration of federal premium subsidies on the Affordable Care Act exchanges. These pandemic-era financial offsets had previously shielded policyholders from the full cost of their monthly premiums, but their termination has triggered sudden double and triple-digit cost increases. Healthcare advocates have warned that the sudden drop in coverage will significantly raise the national uninsured rate and place a heavy burden on public emergency rooms. Low-income families and independent contract workers are expected to suffer the worst of the fallout, as they are effectively priced out of the private health insurance market. The federal government has once again demonstrated that a temporary safety net is a wonderful thing, right up until the moment it is replaced by a bill you cannot afford to pay. The wider world has spent the last several days struggling against the physical limits of its own infrastructure, whether that means battling flames on state borders, testing the fragility of international peace treaties, or watching the literal glue hold the trains together dissolve in the heat. A tragedy on the state border has highlighted the growing danger of an early and intense fire season in the American West. The United States Wildland Fire Service announced that 3 firefighters were killed and 2 others were injured while fighting the fast-moving Knowles and Gore wildfires on the border of Colorado and Utah. Extreme dry conditions, high winds, and record temperatures have combined to fuel aggressive fire behavior across the region, forcing the governors of both states to declare states of emergency. Officials noted that a warm winter left the regional mountain snowpack severely depleted, creating tinderbox conditions months ahead of the traditional summer fire peak. When the weather and the landscape conspire to burn, the regional emergency plans appear to rely entirely on the hope that the wind will change direction before the funding runs out. A fragile, days-old ceasefire in the Middle East is already facing severe stress following a series of military actions. Israeli forces have conducted multiple airstrikes in southern Lebanon while maintaining their ground positions along the border, prompting sharp condemnation from Hezbollah leaders who have labelled the strikes a violation of the truce. The escalation has cast doubt on the durability of the peace agreement, which was brokered after weeks of delicate international diplomacy. Meanwhile, displaced residents of the southern suburbs of Beirut are attempting to navigate the ruins of their homes in a highly unstable security environment. It seems that in the realm of international diplomacy, a peace agreement is frequently treated as a minor pause to allow both sides to reload their weapons. An ongoing environmental crisis in Western Europe is rapidly transforming from a public health emergency into a broad breakdown of civil infrastructure. The World Health Organization has reported that the record-breaking heat wave has now been linked to at least 1,300 excess deaths, with the highest toll concentrated in France and Germany. In Leipzig, Germany, municipal transit authorities were forced to halt tram and train services after the asphalt rubber sealant holding the tracks in place completely liquefied in temperatures exceeding 41 degrees Celsius. Engineering experts have warned that European transport networks were never designed to withstand sustained heat of this magnitude, leaving major metropolitan areas exposed to system-wide failures. It is a sobering realization that the highly praised efficiency of German transit can be completely undone by the simple thermodynamic reality of melting glue. The federal government has abandoned its plans to build a physical barrier through one of the most rugged and scenic wilderness areas in Texas. The commissioner of the Border Patrol announced the cancellation of the border wall project within Big Bend National Park following intense opposition from environmental groups, local leaders, and park advocates. Critics of the project had argued that a concrete and steel wall would permanently damage the delicate desert landscape and block vital migration routes for local wildlife. The agency has indicated it will instead redirect its resources toward expanding electronic surveillance networks and increasing mobile patrol units along the rugged border terrain. It is a rare moment of bureaucratic retreat, where the natural geography of Texas proved to be slightly too stubborn even for a federal construction budget. In a notable development for digital privacy and criminal law, prosecutors in Los Angeles have introduced a defendant's chatbot history as key evidence in an arson trial. The case involves a man accused of starting the devastating Palisades wildfire, with the prosecution presenting records that show the defendant used ChatGPT to generate images of burning forests. The user logs also revealed that the defendant asked the artificial intelligence program if a person could be held legally responsible for a fire that was initiated solely by their own thoughts. While the defense is contesting the admissibility of the logs on privacy grounds, the prosecution argues the queries show a clear pattern of mental state and intent when combined with local cell phone tower data. We have officially entered an era where your private thoughts are not only recorded by a third-party server, but are also subject to a thorough cross-examination by a district attorney. If we look closely at the events of the week, we can find a common thread in the physical compounds that hold our modern societies together. Consider the asphalt rubber joint sealant currently liquefying under the train tracks in Leipzig, Germany. It is a very specific substance, designed to perform a boring and invisible task, yet its sudden transformation into liquid represents the exact point where human planning meets physical reality and loses. We see the same pattern in Austin, where the city council assumed their secret votes on municipal utilities would remain permanently sealed in executive session, only to find that decades of administrative files are now leaking into the public record. We see it in the classroom, where the state of Texas is spending millions of dollars to peel the typos out of its own rushed reading curriculum, as if spelling were a minor engineering defect that could be resolved with a larger tube of glue. The lesson here is not that our systems are failing, but that we have vastly underestimated the importance of proper adhesives. Whether you are trying to secure a billion-dollar tungsten mine in Kazakhstan, keep a local corporation from leaving Cedar Park, or prevent a defendant's private thoughts from being exported to a server in California, you are ultimately relying on some form of structural binding to keep the narrative from falling apart. As an ovis who relies on a thick coat of natural wool to keep the elements at bay, I find this reliance on synthetic sealants to be a bit precarious. Perhaps the next time the state of Texas decides to write a textbook or the federal government decides to manufacture millions of sterile flies, they should invest less in the grand design and more in some high-quality, heat-resistant rubber cement. That way, even if the national economy melts and the climate collapses, the track sealant in Leipzig might at least survive until the evening commute. It is reassuring to know that as the world continues to dissolve into a warm pool of administrative errors and melting infrastructure, the paper trail will remain perfectly preserved for the prosecutors. There is no reason to believe that tomorrow will bring a more stable grade of glue. Lambert Woollingham has noted the various failures of containment and will now return to his pasture before the heatwave begins to affect the structural integrity of his own golden fleece. The day has been shorn until tomorrow.